All right, so my name is Kumi Raouf, aka the Escape Artist. I run a movement called I Love Being Black and a subsidiary of that called Traveling Black. And that's what brings you all here today, apparently. Okay, what's up, Deb? How you doing? I see a couple people have been to places. No, you're right on time. We're starting right now. She was with us in Cuba. And we're going again next month. Actually, he was with me in Cuba too, and Doug. You know? All right, so we are gonna go ahead and get started so we can roll into this panel. I really want you guys to meet these three dynamic people that I have on this panel. I know all of them. They're all extremely experienced travelers, but not just that, they're all educators. You know, I looked up and I realized, I was like, wait a minute, you guys are all educators in some way, shape, or fashion. I think that's amazing. And I really want you guys to pay attention to what they say. Save your question to the end, please, unless you can't hear us or something like that, but hopefully the mic will be loud enough. Okay, so I'm gonna have you guys introduce yourselves because I don't wanna botch the introductions. You guys are all doing some amazing things individually, collectively, and to uplift the community that I want you guys to shout out as well, not just travel stuff. So we're gonna start left to right. We're gonna start with Brother Douglas.
Douglas, how's everybody doing? All right, bless. So I guess if I was in France, my name would be Douglas, but out here it's Douglas. But some call me Pharaoh, Bay Area native, educator, artist, poet, businessman. You know, I've been working, with our community for probably 20 plus years. Started a program called the Sankofa Sessions, working both in juvenile hall and around the community and working with our young transitional age youth to kind of really get them tuned into themselves, right? So even before I started doing all this, kind of traveling and stuff, I'm like a history buff. So, having that knowledge itself is hugely important to me to pass on to our communities, to pass on to our young people and to ourselves. And so knowing who we are, being able to see ourselves in positive representation, knowing that we've been here before, and having that true historical grasp about our ancestry has always been hugely important to me. And so now I'm even kind of like tying the dots together with being able to travel and actually see it firsthand, right? So I'm excited about that journey. I also started 2 cannabis companies here in Oakland, went through the equity program within the city of Oakland. So I have a company called Greenleaf, have another company called Specialty. So, building our own brands, 2 micro licenses, real estate out here, trying to help us get into this industry because there's very few of us in this industry.
That's right.
And so very conscious about helping others get their brands out, get licenses, so on and so forth. And we'll talk more about all that. But just happy to be here, supporting my brother Kumi and this movement and these great people on the panel that I know as well within the community. And let's have a good time.
Thank you, Brother Douglas.
Pleasure to meet you. Good afternoon, y'all. How you doing?
Good.
Okay, it's so beautiful to see all this melanin up in here. So my name is Acacia WoodsChan. I am also a Bay Area native. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an educator. I'm a traveler. And so I started this journey, let me take a step back. I'm also the founder of Ethnic Ties, which is a travel-based company that specializes in preparing people to travel abroad, and especially Black people. The way that this started is because I had the opportunity to travel abroad in college, and actually I've been traveling for the last 15 years. And I, first of all, had a particular set of challenges being, from the Bay Area, being Black person, being woman, all these different things. And then also, I speak French, I speak Portuguese, and I speak Spanish. And so I found that those really helped me while I was abroad. However, when I was in school, I went to UC Santa Cruz. Shout out Santa Cruz. And I was one of the only ones. There weren't a lot of people Black people traveling abroad. And then there were less people of African descent who were in the linguistics department, which I was in, or the economics department, which I was also in. I double majored. And so it was very isolating, and I was just like, well, UC system, you about to pay for all my pain.
I heard that.
So that was that. And then through my travels, I realized that if we have the basics in language and cultural preparation, it can go very far, as the Black travel movement and just travel in general is an industry that continues to grow. And so we'll talk more about that, but now I'm also a local educator. I work at California College of the Arts, and I work in diversity studies because I think it's really important for us to also know the history and the context of a number of not only diasporatic studies, for the African continent, but for many communities of color. And I think it really makes a huge difference if we can have the basics when we're traveling, or if we travel, the basics in language and the basics in cultural context, so that when we do go abroad, we're changing the narrative of what the whole travel kind of privilege is to one that's like, wait a minute, we are displaced communities in the Americas, and so actually we are repatriating. And so just being conscious and prepared about that. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation and being with this group of dynamic panelists, and really excited to be in community with you all.
How y'all doing, my people?
All right, all right.
My name is Shaka Jamal. I'm a director at Oluwate Film and Culture, and we specialize in short form promos for small businesses, nonprofits, music videos, and more recently have been doing travel films. Traveled with Kumi to Cuba last year. It was a beautiful trip. Pharaoh was there too, and we really got a chance to see the world in another light. Also, I have an organization called Namaste Ready, .life, and we teach yoga, health skills to invigorate and activate our ancestral heritage in the Black community, right? Because many times we're taught that some of these healing practices belong to another community,
Right.
when in fact we are the founders and the pioneers of that. But it's about us being able to reclaim that culture, and like you're saying, being able to find out who we are in our history and have some context about things, because that can really shape the perspective of who we are and how we approach life. I've been able to travel from a very young age. I may have had a passport at a year old, and my parents traveled all throughout the world. Traveled to Africa, got the name Shaka. My older brother's name is Gregory. So you know, so I'm like, you know, one of those babies that came out, you know, in the 70s. So after that, I've just been able to travel more and more. And one of the main things I found out is that communication is key. If you can at least say hello, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, that goes in their particular language, and in the way that they actually say it goes a long way. And just being flexible. Because even though Kumi is one of those people, he has a plan, right? And you need that. You need to have a plan. But many times when we go to places, things change, right? And being able to be flexible and have a plan A and a plan B when it comes in terms of our travel, we really do need that. And then how to actually figure out how you're going to travel. Like maybe you want to go with your school, maybe you want to go through work, and maybe it's going to be a side hustle or just for vacation. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but really deciding how it is you want to travel and want to show up helps you decide and open up avenues for yourself to get that passport and see the world in a new light. Thank you.
You see why I brought these people on the panel, y'all? Can we snap it up real quick for the panel? Yeah, snap it up, clap it up, whatever you feel like. Yeah, so a couple other people I'd like to introduce. My lovely queen back there, that's Kelly right there. She's the one who checked you guys all in.
Hey now.
It's my older brother, Kisma, right there. He's gonna be doing the drinks. Mom and Baba, or this mom, I don't know where Baba is. Oh, Baba's over there, yep. Sister Rachel, right here. Can you tell this is a family kind of thing? And nephew Eli is over there. What's up, E? Yeah, wave to the crowd, you famous. Yeah. So yeah, this is the family. They are the ones that kind of got me started on this path. My dad traveled in West Africa in the early 70s, following Fela around. He was in the shrine, you know, probably doing what you do in the shrine. I'm not going to talk about all that, you know what I mean? My mom was the first black stewardess at the time, but now called flight attendant, for an airline. She had never flown on a plane before, y'all. I don't know how you got through that interview, Mom. These are my roots, and they push me to do what I do, and encourage me in everything that I do. So I just want to say thank you so much. They always show up for me. So thank you. All right, jumping right into this panel, I want to get some juicy tidbits out of you guys. So what are some of the differences you guys have seen now between like the Black travel movement and maybe 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, I think first off is Africa.
Yeah.
Africa is seen in a whole new light.
Speak about it.
Right, and one thing is about that's about the power of media, with Instagram out now. Many sisters are wearing their hair naturally now, right? People are more accepting and uplifting of people with darker skin color. Yeah. Black Panther, right? Boom. That has changed a serious dynamic and a shift in our perspective about Africa, where people are just like, oh, I want to go to Africa. When that was one of the last destinations people would think about going. Right. And I think that has been a major shift in time now, right? From 10 years ago, 20 years ago till now. And, you know, people were looked at as kind of crazy. They travel to Africa. You know, You hear all types of, the narrative is that I can remember the first time I traveled to Africa, I actually went through the United States Peace Corps. And you can't choose where you're going to go. They sent me a letter in the mail a month after I graduated from Tuskegee University. And they said, you're going to South Africa. You got 10 days to say yes or no. Woo. Right? So I talked to some people about it. I had a South African.
Real quick. How many days did it take you to respond, though?
To respond to maybe about 3 or 4 days.
Right.
Maybe about 3 or 4 days. Right? But I had to talk to some people and really check it out. I had a South African, he's like my big brother. He was like, hell yeah, you should go. But then sometimes talking to other people, are like, man, you know, they don't like us over there.
Right. You hear that a lot, right?
There it goes.
And to get there and to get a completely different perspective. Like to say, yes, there was some of that there, but you're going to get that anywhere you go.
Right.
Right? But that was not the dominant narrative that I experienced. And for me, being able to go there and come back and tell people, yo, don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think in more and more people traveling and come back and being able to tell our stories has been the important thing. And that's why film for me is so important. I think going to Africa realized, yo, I got my own story to tell.
Yeah.
And that story needs to be heard and needs to be seen by other people. Yep. So I really think that's been the major shift.
Yeah.
I agree. I think having an alternative narrative has really shifted the movement and grown it to where it's like, oh, it's okay to go. So 2 major things I would say. Number 1 is the shifting narrative in terms of realizing that travel is not like a white thing.
There it is.
It's like so many other, like veganism, vegetarianism is not a white thing.
There it is.
Right? Queerness is not a white thing. And so, number 1. Number 2, I think also recognizing that with the growth of a lot of social media and different narratives that are being given access, the fact that I think Black people are realizing that there's a whole diaspora out there, and now we can talk, and now we can see each other. And so it's not just like, oh, I'm Black, read like African American. There's like, okay, but there's Black Chileans, there's Black, Brazilians.
Right.
There's a number of different diasporans, and looking at ways that we can also feel empowered to be part of that diaspora in a very strategic way. Instead of, I feel like maybe like 10, 15 years ago, the narrative was very different. It's very complex. But now I think that there's a narrative of like, oh, through me deciding where I want to spend my money, I can actually be constructing and helping to build this actually, global diaspora. And I can work through that to deconstruct colonial narratives.
Yeah.
And so I think that people are starting to see themselves as active participants and starting to, make their decisions accordingly.
What was the question again? 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, the differences between travel a while ago and now.
Yeah, to add to what both Shaka and Acacia have mentioned, for me it's been through kind of music. I'm like an old hip hop head, right? And so that kind of relationship to kind of a consciousness about self through music. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was on the phone, got introduced to Brother Jay from X-Clan. We're talking about cannabis, we're talking about travel, we're talking about this, that, and the other, right? If I'm listening to PRT or Rakim or some other folks back in the day, and how that's relative to us having an awareness and that understanding and a kind of a positive vibration about who we are and how we see ourselves throughout the world, then there's like no question that we should be there or shouldn't be there or have come from this greatness, right? So we're talking about Kemet, we're talking about Nigeria, and we're talking about different spiritual practices that have gone throughout kind of that, just putting those pieces together for me has been hugely important in having those discussions, amongst my peers, and also, doing a lot of work with the youth, right? So when I'm showing them videos or I'm inviting Kumi to come give a presentation about his travels, and they're like, "That's Africa? No, we don't believe you. There's cities, there's money,
there's all kinds of stuff.
You know what I'm saying?" So I'm like, right, skyscrapers and everything. So that whole thing, my pops was a physicist, my mom, was an artist, you know what I'm saying? So my pops was like, math and science, you guys built that, you built the pyramids, you know what it is, don't ever let me hear you say that you can't create or you're not, intelligent, in regards to anything, science, math, so on and so forth. My mom was like, you can create anything as well with your hands, with your mind. And here's a little Gil Scott-Heron and some Miles Davis to go with that too, to let you know, about our dreams, opening up through some Coltrane, trilogies and traveling back through that kind of spiritual consciousness through the music and the arts and culture. So one thing I do see, I know it's been here, but for me, some of the affirmation is when I get a chance to travel and connect some of the dots to the arts and the culture. And that's one of the things I really dig about traveling with my brother Kumi, because it's, we're not there as tourists, we're there really kind of getting some true knowledge, tapping in with the communities there, whether it be the Maroons or whoever it may be, wherever we may, be traveling to, and having some more educational about who we are, where we came from, and tying those connects together. And as Brother Shaka said, the media component is just kind of the icing on the cake to kind of bring it back to relevance.
That's right. And in addition to that, keep it. In addition to that, with Brother Doug specifically in music, so last year we're in Cuba, and we literally made up the theme song to Traveling Black while we were in Cuba. Remember that? Yeah. So, whoa. We both. You see how rumors get started? You know what I mean? So we were, oh man, that was a good time. Yeah. We were just hanging out in one of the condos that we had rented in Havana Vieja. And who was on the guitar? Somebody was on the guitar.
I think it was either Dwayne or Terrence, right?
Yeah.
No, Terrence was on playing percussion.
Yeah. So Dwayne Wiggins from Tony went with us. So he also brought his guitar to Cuba. So we're walking around.
Like a whole studio. Like he was pulling out recording equipment and whatever. But go ahead.
So we're walking around the streets, the old cobblestone streets of Havana Vieja. He's just strumming. Dudes are coming out the windows and stuff with their own little instruments, and they start just jamming on the street and everything like that. So we're in the condo just jamming, and I don't really sing. I mean, I used to sing in the choir, but you know what I mean? I don't sing. But all of a sudden I just busted out. I was like, I just wanna travel the world. And Doug was like,
and stay black.
Stay black. 'Cause I just wanna come on, y'all. Wanna travel the world and stay black. What? And stay black. There it is right there. So it's not hard to learn. But we literally, the whole week we were there, everywhere we went, someone would bust out with the song and everybody else would just, oh! We had Cubans with us like, oh, quiero viajar. You know, oh, okay, that's Spanish, my bad. Anyway, sorry, back to the panel. But I think that's an important tidbit in just like this brother's in tuneness with music, with poetry. We were also on the beach. Shaka was on the guitar. This brother was spitting a poem that he had written like half an hour ago or something like that. We're on the beach eating lobster. That was one of the best days, literally one of my best days ever traveling and having that experience. Okay, so I asked the three of them, if you could give your younger self some travel advice, what would it be? Right, so we'll start with Doug. He said, just travel more. So
travel more. I would have gotten my passport when I was one, like Brother Shaka, you know.
Right, me
just
too.
been out there in somebody's suitcase to see the world. But yeah, just don't be afraid. You know what I'm saying? Do some research, do your homework, but just go. So you know, even just traveling more around not only the U.S., but you know, taking some time to take some adventures. You know what I'm saying? Open up your mind and just and being bold about what you want to do and gaining those experiences are some of the things I would tell my younger self.
And Sister Acacia said, get a job that will pay you to travel and travel more with loved ones.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me.
Right.
So I agree, definitely making time and priority to travel around the U.S. as well, get to know the local area, get to learn, you know, in a place that has less higher stakes, I guess, because, you know, it's the country that we're in, it's English speaking. Also, I would have loved to travel more with family or friends, you know, my travel crew, and then also make sure that I could get paid to travel. Because, you know, every time I would be like, oh, let me go like 6 weeks to Brazil. Sorry, job, I'm about to be out. Am I gonna have a job when I get back?
Right.
Luckily, I had, you know, the flexibility, and they were like, yeah, come back. We'll just, you know, do something here without you. We'll figure it out. But every time I came back, it was like I was restarting my life over again because I'd spent all my money. So making sure that, number one, I had a lot more financial understanding of ways that I could do that. Hopefully planning with more advance notice, and then also making sure that there was some kind of way that I could get paid for doing that. And I'm love to tell you about how that's happening now as we move on in the panel.
And Brother Shaka said he would tell, he's like, what'd I say? He would tell his younger self to buy land.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a big one.
That's right. Figure out a way to buy land, property, and make investments. As I look back now, because traveling back to South Africa in '99, now it's one of the fastest growing real estate markets in the world right now, right? And think comparatively, like one of our dollars is about 15 of theirs, right? And being able to say, okay, how can I figure out either to do it myself or get a group of people? And just say, we just gonna buy this land. We don't have to think about building something on top. We just want to get this piece of land right here. And being able to do that, because in certain countries, you just can't buy land.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was something, looking back, that I would really tell my younger self. How do you make this long-term investment? Because you never know, you may come back or you may need that money later, and it's going to be able to quadruple for you.
Yeah, and there's so many places around the world that, like, literally our dollar is extremely, it's heavier than wherever it is. Places like South Africa, I mean, even my first time going there, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, I'm like, wait, I can buy this condo downtown for $50,000? Like downtown, not off in the sticks or anything like that, like right here? Now it's more than double that, you know? So some of these opportunities are going away, but it's also important to, you know, sometimes when we travel, we have to leave some of our Americanness at home. And a lot of that is stuff that we don't even realize we have sometimes. You know, these chips on our shoulder, these expectations that we have, these stereotypes that we have, which kind of leads into the next question. What stereotypes have you unlearned since you've started traveling?
Stereotypes about unmarried.
If any, or just things that have surprised you? You thought it was going to be a different way or whatever it was.
Well, I think a piece of me, growing up with parents who have traveled to Africa, they say, yeah, you're African.
Yeah.
But actually going there and seeing it, it was something else. But for me, it was double-edged, because at times I felt like it affirmed, as much as I am African, there's so much of it that I'm not also, right? Just because we are our own particular, we are African, but we are a particular, in my perspective, a particular tribe.
Yeah.
And our environment has shaped us. So one of the things is, I'm remembering now, I think as American culture, we commodify everything. Everything has a cost. Anything can be bought and anything can be sold. And I think for a while, I thought that everybody thought like that.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't think like that. And for some people there in North Africa, they were like, it's crazy that people are selling water. That's just not something you sell. People are thirsty, you give them something to drink. You don't charge them for that. Right? And I think many times I was there, I was like, all these things y'all are doing, y'all can sell this and sell that. And sometimes I just had to relax and just be thankful for how things were. So I think that is definitely one thing, because we need to sometimes commodify things to survive in the city, but it can become a sickness also.
Yeah.
And sometimes being able to travel and take myself out of this particular bubble just allows me to have a new perspective in life, and really check myself on, like, how am I approaching life, how am I approaching the decisions that I'm making for myself and for my family.
Respect.
Yeah, I agree. The capitalist mentality is like a whole thing that is really interesting, and I'm glad that you said, I've had to take a lot of chips off of my shoulder and be like, yes, I'm Black, however, I'm also African American,
right.
And that's a whole different thing, especially when you're traveling within the diaspora. So to add on to that, I totally agree. Also is my idea of violence. That has been a whole different thing, and that's not to say that there's not violence like everywhere, but for instance, I remember my first time I traveled to the Bahamas when I was a teenager, and someone had wanted to show me the different side of the Bahamas, not the all-inclusive tourist area. And I was like, well, I don't know. It was when the girl from Aruba had went missing, if y'all remember. That's different though, we're not the same. And so I was like, I don't know, maybe you're gonna do this, that, and that. And they turned to me and was like, damn, what's wrong with you? Are you about to do that to me?
Right.
And I was like, no, why would you think I would do that? And they were like, well, why would you think I would do that? And so at a certain point, to speak on what you're saying, there's a different way of connecting. And it's not necessarily about how much money you have or what, prestige you come from, but it's about where your heart is. And that shows up in so many different ways, through your actions, through the way that you utilize your resources, shift things around. And so also in Brazil, I saw this too. It doesn't matter. In Salvador, yeah, okay, you have money and that's a real necessity in a lot of situations. However, you can't buy people's trust.
Yeah.
And that's very apparent out there.
Yeah.
You can't buy someone's deep connection with you, or you can't buy someone's friendship. And so my understanding of violence and then the connections that we make with people and how those can be your methods of protection went a lot farther there, because, there's all these different aspects of it as well in terms of like politics, economics, how stable certain other organizations are, like the police, all these different things. But people are your heart, and the way that you connect with people is the real way that you can leverage your sense of safety, protection, and avoid different types of violence, which was so super different than out here, because you're just like, well, just call, there's a lot more consciousness around it, but it was like, well, just call the cops, here. And they're like, I ain't about to do that. I'm not sure. No, that's another level I have to do it. So it was really eye-opening to be in a position where you just don't have all of those facades to hide behind.
See here, you guys already said everything. No, I think for me, that I can recall is just there's a lot of brainwashing and colonization that goes on both sides of the fence, right? And so, just having an open mind enough to have some real conversations with people that you're able to connect with wherever you travel, because the stereotypes are presented through the mass media and whatnot in ways that, they have this false narrative about who we are, and then, we too have certain perceptions that aren't accurate, about who we are over there too. So, I could just recall some instances where, I went to Jamaica maybe 20 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, the Rasta, let me just, hang out and whoop, 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 and do my thing. And I just saw so much kind of Americanization. Like they were just kind of, don't you want to listen to hip hop? Don't you want to listen to, or go to this club? Don't you want this sort of, I was like, nah, man, I came out here from some roots. Where's some, I don't want to hear any of that you're playing. But we're watching MTV. And that's you, right? Yeah. So you are that N-word. You are that da-da-da-da. And I was like, nah, I'm not that, I'm a different type of African. And they're, so I had some intense conversations with folks throughout my travels from Jamaica to South Africa, onward and upward. But again, I think it's having enough patience to have, some real dialogue, communication with folks about them getting to know us as well. And because I don't, just as we can speak about how we've been, brainwashed or cut out from history books or miseducated in certain respect, I mean, trust and believe the colonization game over there is deep as well. And so they don't know what we've gone through over here. And so even when you come with some of that, they're like, damn, really? Like, we didn't know, like, you even cared, or you were down with that, or you, you part of the Garvey movement, or talking about some real Pan-Africanism and things of that nature. And so I think for me, kind of addressing some of those stereotypes through the media in particular and through education was huge and still remains to be.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. I think a lot of times one of the sort of American things that we do here is we think we own the term black. Right. We think black equals African American, which it doesn't. Black is the umbrella term that encompasses all of us, right? And then B, we think we almost own oppression. So there's police shooting us, yes. There's these things happening to us, yes. There's racism, there's Trayvon Martins, there's this, there's that, right? There's Sandra Bland's, there's all these things that are happening. But there's also stuff like that happens in other places. And I remember when Trayvon Martin happened, shortly after that I went to Brazil. I think it was Trayvon, it was somebody. I think it was Trayvon. And we were speaking about it, and I was upset, and I'm angry, and this and that. And then he was like, well, how many people got killed? I said, well, one. It was Trayvon, it was a kid, it was Trayvon Martin. He looked me straight in my eye and said, we have a Trayvon Martin every day. Every day in Brazil, right? Like that type of situation. But yeah, like, so you ever see that bar graph on Facebook that's like, oh, most violent country in US is like this, and then like Denmark is here and this and that. You ever notice how Brazil is not on that list? Because Brazil's bar graph would be 5 times what ours is. Literally. That's the difference in violence, right? So we don't own oppression, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of times to be able to combat it, we have to sort of own a part of it over here in the US, but we don't own that term, not at all, you know what I mean? But one thing that, I'm gonna answer my own question from the past. One thing that I had to sort of unlearn or think about differently was just poverty in general. You know what I mean? What it is to be in poverty. I think here we shackle poverty with feeling downtrodden or sad or whatever about life. I met poor people that were extremely happy. And when I mean poor. I'm not talking about living on the street, but there's a couple shelters you can go to and a couple free meals you can eat and this, and I'm talking poor like nobody's looking out for you. If you don't find your own food, you're not going to eat type of poor. But we're happy. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind to go through favelas and townships and you know, and slums in Kenya and this and that, and to see folks that are like playing games, kids that are happy, like kids that literally don't know that they're poor. And it made me rethink a lot of things about myself and this whole hierarchy and this inner totem pole that you keep about poverty that you didn't even know was there. Okay, so people always ask, and I literally hate this question, but what's your favorite country? So I'm not going to ask you guys that. Yes. But I will ask two questions, and this is rapid fire. What country is high on your list, and what country is very low on your list of places you want to go to? Doug, we'll start with you.
I have not been to Egypt, i.e. Kemet yet, or Ethiopia yet. Those are definitely high on my list just because of a lot of study and research I've done.
2020?
Oh, for sure. Has to be. 50th birthday, I'm there. Anybody else want to come?
June, right?
June, yes sir.
Let's go.
Low on the list? I don't have a low on the list, man. I'm trying to get everywhere that I can. I'm trying to move over there, have several abodes, you know, throughout the diaspora. And so, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing as much, if not all, that I can. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You see how you just dodged the second question? Though?
Right, yeah.
We're gonna keep that up here. All right.
That's a hard question. I don't know, because I don't know. How do people find where they're gonna travel? I would love to go to Francophone-speaking countries in West Africa, so I could speak French and also get to know some more about some of the actual like local history, not the one that we've been like brainwashed with. I mean, well, at a certain level. I'm gonna be really honest and say, no shade, this was just my experience. I traveled to Morocco, and I will say that I did see a certain level of anti-blackness, but it was like sub-Saharan Africa blackness that I really didn't vibe with at all. And luckily enough, I speak French, so I was able to maneuver some of the things and be like, no me fais pas ça, like don't do that to me. I understand what you're saying. They'd be like, oh my goodness, are you Moroccan? And so that was really helpful, but you know, I would see a number of Cameroonians or Senegalese who were I was in Marrakesh and then also the more western part, and I just didn't vibe with that. Now, I could have been missing something, or there could have been some other kind of situation, which I later found out that there was a huge migration kind of crisis, what they said, but still, I was like, number one, this is a human, and number two, this is some like groups of people who have traditionally been marginalized on so many different levels, but they built all this stuff, so let's get that together. I would love to go another time and have a different experience and make sure that I would go to locals and people who also had other experiences, but that definitely put a sour taste in my mouth.
I definitely want to see more of Africa. Definitely want to see more Africa and South America. Those will probably be the two. I haven't been to South America yet.
Nowhere in South America?
Nowhere.
Shock. You know, we just got back from Brazil. Went to Argentina afterward. Come on, man.
Shaka, any particular countries on both ends of the spectrum?
Egypt was the first thing I thought about in Africa. Congo. Right? It went like in the center. What is...
Yeah.
You know, and then to see, I would love to see the gorillas too. Because, you know, like, I said for my kids, I want them to be able to see that. And I got to shout out my kids. I let them like, I did like a little mock panel and they gave me suggestions and everything. So in my intro, I forgot to say, for such my lady at home, my kids, you know. So I got two little boys and an older daughter. So I got to make sure I say that. But I want them to see the gorillas. Won't be able to travel with them, because who knows, in 50 years or something like that, if they're actually going to be there.
That's true.
Right?
The way that we're killing up the planet, yeah.
So, yeah, I would love to go to Egypt, the Congo. I wanted to go to Morocco, but I have heard about the sub-Saharan, and especially the slave trade. A lot of those things are still there.
Yeah.
I want to see Mama C and Baba Pete in Tanzania, right? You know, if y'all know, they're Black Panthers who have been exiled there for, what, 30, 40 years? Mama C comes back, but Baba Pete hasn't. And they have an actual compound, a village of their own, and you can travel there, right? So you can come there and just stay as a tourist and you pay, but if you actually have a skill, like if you want to teach or reach a song in drumming, you can actually have a residency. So that's one of the ways you can actually travel. That was going to, I don't know, I'm just...
No, this is the next question. It's perfect.
Just riffing, but think about what skill that you have and what you can offer. Because many times I know I've traveled about what is it that I can get, but many times we have to give.
Yeah.
So if you have a particular skill, that is one place that you can travel to and stay there for a week or for a month. And then every day you teach a class.
Yep.
Right? And then they put you up in a place and feed you, and then you learn everything it is you can about Tanzania. You know, you start learning your Swahili, which we'll never know. Very soon it could be the official language of Africa. Mm-hmm. Right? Many countries are starting to adapt Swahili outside of the typical countries. Rwanda, yeah, just started. Rwanda, I want to go to Rwanda.
Yeah, Rwanda's dope.
Right?
Gorillas?
Yes. You
know?
Yeah, so that's, yeah. So, and then Brazil.
I know, he's just...
And Brazil and Peru. Yeah, I know you've been to Colombia. Yeah. That was one of your first trips, right?
It was the
first
traveling black trip, and it was all black men. It was 13 black men, mostly from the Bay. And that's another topic. This guy keeps just going down the list. Come on.
And then... One more?
One that you don't want to go to.
I don't want to say don't. I don't want to go to no place that there was some ecological man-made disaster or something like that. I need to, Chernobyl, places like I need to stay away from. No, don't put that on my list. Yo, I'm not lying. When I went to the Peace Corps, I was like, don't put me nowhere near that place. Or anything like that.
I'm good.
But you know, as long as I can be safe and healthy, and that I want to see it, because I know every place I go to, whether it's Europe or Africa, I'm learning something and can take it back.
Wonderful. So one of the name of this is Travel More, Spend Less, right? So we have to put something in there about saving money somehow. So that's my next question to the panel. What quick ways, do you use when you're traveling or before you're traveling, when you're planning to save money?
Well, right on talking about the skills, last trip I took was in October with the Hidden Genius Project. If y'all know about them, they're a group of black men who are entrepreneurs or in the tech industry who teach young black boys and young black men about entrepreneurship in the tech industry, and they travel to Africa. And since I'm a cinematographer, I was hired to travel with them. Right? And they put us up in a nice hotel. Yo, where I first was South Africa, I was living with no running water, no electricity and stuff like that. Yo, this place was the best service I ever got in my life, right? And black people are running the whole thing. And for our young black folks there, they're typically seeing Latino, Hispanic, Chicano people doing service work. For them to see black people actually doing that, they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And they're doing it at such a high level.
Yeah.
So for my thing, it's like whatever skill you have, how can your skill help you travel around the world? Some of us are teachers. My mother was a Fulbright scholar, right? So I lived in Bahrain, which is right next to Saudi, an island next to Saudi Arabia, for a year when I was in high school. Right? I went with her kicking and screaming, but it was one of the best experiences of my life. And then deciding how it is you want to travel. Yeah. If you have the budget to spend $500, $600, $700, $800 a night to stay in a nice place, and you know that's the only way you're going to travel, you got to figure that out. Yep. But if you say like I'm willing to pay $15, $20 a night and stay in a hostel, build it around that. Yep. Right, and I think just making that decision, how it is you want to travel, and then everything else will be able to open up for you.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say a couple of different things. I think that finding your skill and letting that pay your way is huge. And so when you said Fulbright, that's how I went to Ghana. I was Ghana, China for 1 month, kicking it, learning all these different things because I'm an educator. And I'll actually be going with Stanford to Chile in the beginning of the year, also doing, teaching design thinking. And that's because I'm an educator. So number one, professionalizing your travel. Number two, I think going in groups. So the trips that you all do and the one that's coming up in January. I think is a great way to also, split some of the costs, make sure that, because if you go by yourself, not only are you finding the different things to do, paying for them on your own, or even if you go with like 2 or 3 people, but when you go with a big group, then you are cost sharing a little bit more, and then you have things that are already taken care of you, have a certain level of protection or at least a plan, contingency. And then number 3, I would say as much advanced planning as you can do as possible, do that. When I was studying abroad in college, you had to have your application in 1 year in advance of the time that you were going to go. And the reason why was because not only did they want to make sure that you had your academics taken care of and that you were going to graduate on time, or something to that extent, they also wanted to be sure that your financial aid was going to go through if you had financial aid, and that also that you were going to have, one thing I will say that was lacking, and this is like a shameless plug for my business, they didn't have necessarily the language and the cultural preparation. However, if you do have advance notice and you know where you're going to go and you at least have the outline of your travel plans, then you can make sure that you are preparing yourself in ways that, once you get on the ground, hopefully it's going to save you time, stress, and money, because you would have already prepared. And especially given the technology that we have nowadays, let me just say, in Ghana, when I was in Ghana for that month, things stopped. I could not, I had reports due, I couldn't get the reports done. Because the internet is just a different, it's just a different level. And then 5G was rolling out here, and I came back and I was like, damn, you could start a whole business just on internet, which we're doing. So making sure that you're prepared, you're using your skills, and then you're traveling in bigger groups. Also, when you travel in groups, you can also make deals with airlines.
Yep.
So, and I think it's, and hotels. And so I think it's 8 or more, or 10 or more, usually. It gives you a little bit more leeway.
Ditto. That being said, I call Kumi. Kumi, I'm also, I don't do the best, and I'm getting better at, I'm pretty spontaneous at certain things. I just like to get up and go. If I'm feeling a certain way, I'll just make that happen. And I know kind of advanced planning and putting your mind and budgeting for that obviously pays off in the end, because I remember when I went to Cuba, I think with Kumi a couple of years ago and stuff, and he's always hit me, you coming, Doug? Last minute, you always working? Come on, brother, what's happening? And I'm like, man, I'm trying to make it happen, man, I got to do this. And so when I bought my ticket for Cuba last minute, or was it South Africa, one of them, I ended up just paying way more money than I should have been paying, right? Had I not bought that ticket 6 months in advance or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that's just common sense stuff, right? But also, again, traveling with groups and people that know, where you're traveling, kind of know the deals, know the locals, so you can, we can go have that, in Cuba, for example, we go down and have like a sit-down meal that's $15, that's like lobster and the works and wine, and dude, we're feeling like, Chef Negro or something. But if we go, but also, just knowing kind of spots to go where we can go get a nice pizza, some other, really good food from the locals for 50 cents or something. We're getting bomb ice cream that kills Baskin Robbins for what was like 75 cents or
4 cents a scoop.
4 cents a scoop. I mean, so just having and knowing and working with people that have that sense, about where they're traveling, it's just smart traveling, right? Yep. So, and then again, I also having, when I go places, I also think most of the time, can I make money there? Because I want to travel for free, So how can I apply my again, skills or services or whatever to a certain place or thing when I get there. And so I'll, go around and kind of see what some needs are and try to connect, with communities so that I can, give something as well. And then, the reciprocal aspect of that is, I find out, I'm getting free meals, or people are like putting up with lodging, or, let me show you, my village over here, or what have you, because I see you over here teaching my kid about, Malcolm X or whatever, so on and so forth. So I I always bring a lot of books and or artworks and things like that to kind of trade and barter and kind of talk about and stuff like that. And so knowing kind of what some of the needs are in some of the places that you travel, and you could take some goods and supplies from over here that are, really worth a lot to those that don't have in certain places that you may travel. This is also another way to kind of figure out some ways to kind of save a couple of pennies on the back end.
Yeah. Even toiletries or sanitary stuff like that. In some places, it means a lot to folks. You know what I mean?
Can I have one last?
Go ahead.
I know that this is not everybody, so, but the longer you can stay, the cheaper generally, like your airfare, for instance, will be. And then two, once you get out of this country or the Western world, lodging, food is way cheaper. As a matter of fact, you could stay there for a month and save money over staying here at your home. So I know, and again, that's like a subset of population who can do that. But if you can, maybe you might be in between gigs or in between jobs, then it might be an opportune time to do something like that.
And in terms of saving money, you talked about gifts. Sometimes things that may not mean a lot to us mean a lot to people there. And sometimes it opens up the opportunity for things that are priceless. Like you said, the trust. You can't buy people's trust.
Like a home-cooked dinner at somebody's house. Like, oh, please come over.
Yep. Yeah. And I think there's all of us who have traveled, all of you who have traveled, I would assume that you experienced something magical that happened that you wouldn't have had if you wouldn't have the courage to just get that passport and go.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is something that is very, very important. And I think that's one of the things for me that keeps that love of traveling alive. Is that knowing that those things are those things those are things that can happen.
Yep.
And in terms of, I know I talked about the Hidden Genius Project, being able to travel there, but even I made an arrangement with them to stay. So they have to leave after a week. I said, well, if I'm going to go on the trip, you all have to make my ticket to leave a week and a half after you all, right? Because I knew, they worked me. Right? There was no time to like really kick it and have fun. So I knew that I wanted to see some people and my family friends who I had first met when I moved to South Africa, and then to also work on a new film and music project. Right? So I negotiated that with them. So after the first week of working, took a day or two just to rest, and then went to do anything that I had to do for another about week and a half, 2 weeks after that. So use your power of negotiation also, right? If you're not asking and negotiating, you're not doing your job, right? You got to at least, give them the opportunity to say no.
Yeah.
For sure.
And for me, I think the biggest thing was, this is back when I was in corporate America, and I took my first trip to Japan and Thailand, and I was like, wow, all this new stuff is out there. And I got the travel bug so bad. It was 2007, 2008. I started traveling late. So when I got that bug, it bit me real hard. Like real, I was like, okay, I have to keep doing this. Whether it jeopardizes my job, whether it does this, I have to keep doing this. Within a year, I was out of corporate America. I was like, you guys want me to keep working, but I gotta do all this. You know what I mean? So to the credit of the people who just spoke, you've got to figure out a way that you can wrap some sort of money in it, unless you're just rich. But if you are, please take me with you. But yeah, it's good if you can either work remote, which is a good one. Telecommuting in from Rio is on a beach, sounds really nice. Or, figure out something that you can do while you're there. A lot of people will let you, if you just want to live and eat, they'll let you just speak English or do this or do that. A lot of folks have done stuff like that. That's why I went to Japan in the first place. A buddy of mine that I grew up with was doing a Teach English thing there, and he's like, yo, y'all gotta come visit. And then the second thing for me was realizing that you don't have to be rich to travel. You don't. You don't have to be even near rich to travel. And that's not just staying in hostels or, eating this, all this low quality food or something like that. I'm talking about eating nice stuff, flying in, a suite on an airplane, which I did. $7,000 flight that I took for $200 that we're gonna talk about later on. You saw those pictures? Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that once you learn these tricks, oh my God, I can't unlearn it. I literally can't. I look back, I'm like, I could have been doing this and that, saved on my miles and but going forward, miles and points are absolutely the best way to get around the world. Yeah, on average for everyone. And we're going to talk about that in the next portion of this. But I want to open it up for a couple questions. If you guys want to have a couple questions to the panel. We have one right here.
So I think I heard Fulbright mentioned. I'm an educator as well, so that interests me. Did you say Fulbright, Fullbr?
Yeah, 1L.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was about Fulbright and for educators, more information on how you can travel abroad. So I had been teaching for teacher for OUSD, and I got an email from, you can imagine, we just went on strike last year, we're just underfunded, there's a lot of stuff going on. So I'm the type of person, I reach out for resources all the time, just so I kind of have them. And so I was part of a group that does social science, it's ORIAS, you're an educator, so you might use it too. It's regional studies, and they'll have people come to your class and all these different things for free. They have all these PhD students, blah, blah, blah. And so this newsletter sent me something for the summer, and a lot of times, let me just say right now, between now and usually February, is when they're sending out these newsletters about different things. And we can connect afterwards, because I just saw one for South Africa in conjunction with Merit, which is another great resource. And so they sent out something being like, do you want to travel to China? I'm like, yes, I'm Chinese and I'd love to go back there too, and for free. And so it was a month-long trip. It was studying the Silk Road, the historical Silk Road, and then the contemporary one. And so we went to 6 different areas. We went to Mongolia, all paid, lodging paid, all 4- and 5-star hotels. It was also almost kind of too much. I was like, can I go to a 2-star hotel with the people? But it was very amazing. We had very excellent caliber of, just a number of different contacts, all the way from the State Department, all the way to university professors and lecturers, directors of museums. And then this year, I went on one to Ghana, and the theme was multicultural and multilinguistic tools for your students. And so same thing, we went all around Ghana, like all the way around. Actually, that was the thing that prompted an event that's gonna be happening for people going to Ghana in the year of return, which is happening actually in the same room on Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's really funny, yeah. And so there's a number of different things you can do. It's not limited to that. So I know that there's maybe, how many educators in here? Okay, a couple educators. There's a number of different things. You don't have to be an educator to do this. Fulbright has an open kind of application where you can be a professional and you pitch them your proposal, and it can be anywhere from 1 month to 15 months, and then you give them, a budget on what you'd like to do. Now, obviously, they want you to have experience in what you're going to be teaching, all these different things. But one thing, if I could impart anything, is be persistent and do not accept no. Now, that doesn't mean you got to be super militant about things or whatever the case, or like sneaky or any kind of thing. But definitely just following up and saying like, hey, I'm resending this. I would love to continue that conversation that we had. That can really go a very far way. And sometimes if you don't get it the first time, Fulbright is very prestigious, what they say, but I don't care about none of that. I'm like, look, Joseph, you said you're gonna give me a call back, and I'm just calling. Sometimes that's enough to get you in, honestly. So I would just say be persistent, and if it's not gonna be Fulbright, there is another organization that is also going to give you the money, because honestly, let's be honest, we're in the United States and we're in Silicon Valley. Yeah. Someone is gonna pay for you to see your project out.
Well, I just need them to pay for me, I know that.
Yeah.
Are there any other?
We can talk more, yeah.
Any other questions?
Can you tell us about your trip to Cuba
Yes, I can do that actually. The trip, the trip is not full. We always go with under 20 people because we want to keep it small and intimate. We want to have everybody know each other's names and people not get lost and things like that. So we specialize in doing trips that are like for the people. So we're going under the Support for the Cuban People general license to Cuba. A lot of people think you can't go to Cuba, right? Do you hear that in the news? You can't go to Cuba and all that. Trump changed things. He did change some things. He did cut off, bless you, he did cut off some of the ways that you can get down to Cuba. Like there's no more cruises. There's no more people-to-people program, and he, about a month ago, cut off all flights to non-Havana airports. There were like 17 airports you could fly into, but now it's just Havana, which is fine because our trip's in Havana. But we're going to be going to the Afro-Cuban Museum. We're going to be listening to some rumba music and studying the culture. Learning about the Abakua, which is all black male secret society that still practices today, that have roots all the way back to Africa, right, before they took that boat trip a long time ago. Which is very interesting to know that a lot of these cultures kept some of their Africanity because we really didn't get to keep any of it here, right? They broke us up. You speaking a different language, you different tribe, different this and that. So, but yeah, you see some of the dances that they're still doing. You see, and then you go to Brazil and you're like, that's like the same dance, right? And it's just like, whoa, y'all got to keep some of this, you know what I mean? And you know, we do a lot of fun stuff too. We're going during the Havana Jazz Festival. So we're in there, and oh man, that jazz festival is so nice. We saw Chucho Valdez, 5-time Grammy Award-winning pianist. This past January, Roberto Fonseca was there. He was crazy amazing. And then 2 months later, he came to the Bay and did a show. So half of us went to go see that show too. I believe Roberto Fonseca is going to be the headliner, but they're like so last minute on telling us exactly who's going to be who. But yeah, there's space, but we're going to close that trip literally at the end of this week. This week coming up, on the 14th, we're going to close the trip. I'll give you my card right after this. I don't know, but yes.
I have two questions. One, you said points, and what's the second thing you said is the way you say
Points and miles, yeah. And the second half of this is going to be all about that. So I hope you brought some notepads and all that stuff. Okay. I'm going to get y'all with all the tricky little this and that. Oh, sorry.
My second question is for Shaka. I heard you mention if you have a skill set that you can use, you can go get a residency. I think you said Tanzania.
Yes.
What are other countries, or is that everywhere?
Well, Tanzania specifically through so the question was, if you have a particular skill, how can you get residencies in other places? For Tanzania, that's specifically for the compound of village that Mama C and Baba Pete have there. And they have a website for that. Maybe if we can connect afterwards, I can send you the link.
UAACC, United
there you go.
African Alliance Community Center, or anyway, it's UAACC.
.com or .org? .com. UAACC.
UAACC. I'm going to look that up.
All right. And then some other place, I don't have any off that I can really think of right now, but that's a good start right there. There's many people in Oakland who have traveled there.
Yeah.
Many people.
Yeah. And she comes here regularly.
Yeah, she comes here about at least once a year, sometimes twice.
All right, so we're going to cut this here for the panel portion, but these intelligent, amazing, beautiful, strong folks are going to be around for a little bit, right? A little bit, because we're going to eat. I don't want the food to get too cold. We're going to eat. There's some caipirinha, some drinks in the back, play a little music, and then get ready for the Travel More, Spend Less seminar portion. Please give them a round of applause.